Welcome to the first part series of our 4-part tips on overcoming obstacles to travel. Every Friday in August, I'm going to give you some tips. They're all things that I've done that have helped me to travel more, because part of living my best life and my dreams means traveling. So a lot of people struggle to travel, and the 4 main reasons I think that is they don't have time, they don't have the money, or they don't have the experience, so they just don't know what to do. They want to go on a grand adventure and they have no experience in adventuring. So they're at a loss of where to even start. Or they're just afraid. They're afraid to be out in the world. Maybe they don't have anybody to travel with. I know I travel mostly by myself, but not always. So I used to work for like the last almost decade. I have worked primarily 65 hours or more a week, in 1 or 2 jobs, depending on how much overtime I got in one job if I had to go get another. And I did that because I started out pretty poor. Couldn't even keep my utilities on. Definitely wasn't eating several meals a day. It was mostly hot dogs, 2 for $1 hot dogs from Sheetz. If you don't know what Sheetz is, it's our local gas station in the northeastern US. Sheetz is like our major gas convenience store, and they used to do 2 for $1 hot dogs. And so I've been worked to death, poor, and inexperienced and fearful. I've been all 4 of these things, and these are my tips on how I overcome them and now travel all the time. So this week we're going to focus on time. I'm not sure next week what we're going to get into. I just kind of picked them randomly. Let me know, leave me a comment what you want to talk about next week, and we'll go with that. But it's going to be every Friday in August. It's a 4-part series, and well, let's just get into it here. So how I like to gauge my time for my trips is a good starting point is, if it's a 2-hour drive, it's a nice day trip. Anything that I can be to in 2 hours makes a really nice getaway for the day. Anything that's like 3 to 4 hours of a drive, I tend to make that like an overnight trip. I don't want to drive 4 hours, spend only a few hours, and then have to drive back a few hours. Those are good overnight trips. Anything more than 4 hours, I try to stay at least 2 nights. And that's just to keep some balance in the commute, versus like how much time you're actually on vacation or getting away. So that's how I tend to set my standards for how many nights I'm staying, if I'm staying overnight or not. And so one of the greatest things though is, if you are commuting a lot, consider that as part of your vacation. Don't think, oh, I just have to drive 4 hours and then I get there and then I can start my vacation. Start it when you get in the car. Road trips are fun. The road trip itself, the driving, that's fun. So don't waste all that time waiting to get there. Enjoy that time too, Have some audiobooks ready, or a road trip playlist. Or if you're going to see a museum or a monument or something, maybe have a history lesson downloaded on it. Get in that mindset, get yourself worked up to get there. And also, especially if I'm going on a really long trip, like if I'm going down to the Carolinas, that's 9 hours for me. Plan some, leave room for spontaneous stops. Work that into your road trip. That makes it fun. Stop at a random diner that you think looks cool, or or you see a sign. When I see signs for coffee, like big flags blowing that say coffee here, open now. Oh my gosh, I hit the brakes so hard. I love that part of my road trips. That makes it fun. I love just driving through the mountains and just taking in the scenes. So that's not a waste of time for me. I love the road trip itself as part of my trip. So another thing I do is I don't sleep in. If I have limited hours, I want to get enough sleep that I'm functioning and not cranky, but I'm not going to sleep in 9-10 hours. I definitely want to get up and make use of the days, and that is so hard for me because I am not a morning person at all, but I love the sunrise. So I always get up for sunrise if I'm on vacation, and even if I'm just there for one night, if I'm just doing a one night overnight, I always get up for the sunrise. It's worth it for me. It's the hardest thing to do, to wake up when you're not a morning person. It's like painful. But once you're actually sitting there with coffee, watching the sunrise, it's worth it. So make use of your time. Don't sleep in. And sometimes that means sacrificing nights and mornings. So if you want to get up to be first in line for an attraction at 10 a.m., maybe don't stay out late at a bar or something till 2 a.m. Kind of think about that. And I always prep the night before leaving for vacation. Have the car packed, ready to go. I said always, didn't I? I don't always do that. I'm really bad at packing last minute, but I'll get to it in a minute I'll tell you why. But definitely, if you get off work at 5 p.m., be leaving, like right from there. Be packed, ready to go. Don't have any last minute things that need done. Have it done. Unless your last minute things are putting food in the cooler, and then that I understand, but okay. And so what I was saying about not always packing last minute, I keep it simple. That's why definitely keep it simple, especially if your trips are short. You only have one night where you can go on a trip. There's lots of times I take one night trips. I drive 2 hours, I stay one night, I drive home. I do a lot of spontaneous last minute camping trips. And that's because I keep it simple. I can have my whole thing set up in under half an hour, and I have the whole thing taken down in under half an hour. There's no big glamping tents with lights hanging from them. But that's fine for me. That meets my needs. That's what I want. And do you really need 100 outfits for a weekend getaway? Keep it simple. Sometimes less is more. And I always have a go bag ready also, especially for camping. I keep my camping gear in my car at all times because it's very simple, it's very minimized. I have it boxed up appropriately, and I just leave it in the car. So there is no packing and unpacking. I literally just have to get in the car and go. I grab my food, but if it's only one night, sometimes I'll just stop and get some takeout and use that. But so I keep it simple. I have a go bag ready. I prep the night before, so I'm ready to go as soon as I can. Another thing I do, or used to do, it's not an option for what I'm currently working on, but I utilize long weekends. So that obviously seems like common sense, but if it's a holiday weekend and you work the holidays, first off, previously I always worked the holidays because you only get so many PTO days, and I didn't want to be forced into using one on a holiday because we didn't get holiday time. We had to use PTO for it. So I made sure to always work the holidays, so I saved my PTO days for when I actually had plans and wanted to use them. And another thing about holidays, some places will let you do a floating holiday. So if you do have to work the holiday, they'll let you substitute another day off for that holiday. And some places it doesn't have to be in the same week either. That's how my boyfriend's job is. So try to use that if you can. A lot of places that I've been seem like they're pretty good about scheduling and talking to people as long as you're being reasonable. So maybe that's an option. Maybe ask about it if you can float your holiday. And my first major trip that I took by myself was a trip to Gettysburg, and it was just a one-night trip. It was spontaneous. It was last minute. I got a call from work that my shift needed changed. I had to go work a new shift. I was traveling for work then too, but not far, just like local travel. And I got a last minute call that I had to go work with a new client for the night. But that meant that I had the next night off before going back to my normal night shift. My schedule had kind of got changed up, and I had a random night off all of a sudden. So I threw together a plan real quick. I'd never been to Gettysburg. I hadn't camped by myself at that point. This was the first trip I took by myself. It was a 3-hour trip, a little over 3-hour trip to Gettysburg on a spontaneous night. And so I utilized my shift change. And for the last couple years, I've been doing that a lot also. Especially if I go from night shift to second shift or second shift to night shift. Like anytime I have a big shift change, I utilize those extra couple hours off. And I know some people have a hard time transitioning between shifts. Don't push your body past its limits, please, especially if your job is very mentally taxing. I don't want you to make mistakes and get hurt or anything, but some people, when they have the weekend off and they work night shifts, some people get off work Friday morning and they sleep Friday because they're exhausted, and then they have to go back in Sunday night, so they sleep Sunday and they kind of just slept the whole weekend. And then there's the other type of person who treats it like 3 days off. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they're off, and they just drink energy drinks and power through because they've got a 3-day weekend every weekend. So there's different approaches to that, but I like to utilize shift changes, and I like to utilize that 3 days off, basically, is how I look at it. So once you're actually on your trip, how do you make the most out of the time? Well, I already said, don't sleep in. Get enough to be healthy, but don't oversleep and waste time. Also, have an itinerary planned. This means putting in time before you go on vacation to make the most of the time on vacation. So, to save time, know where you want to go, know where everything is in proximity to the other things, know when those places are open and when they quit selling tickets and admitting also, and maybe even try to figure out what the parking situation is like, because I know there are times when I go places and I am getting the very last parking spot. I'm so lucky. And then there's times when there are no parking spots. I know the last time I went to the art museum in Philly, there was no parking, so we didn't get to go that day. But if you want to go to Fenwick Island Beach, the parking lots, once they fill up, they close for the day, and there's no more parking there till I think late in the evening. They might open them back up, but some situations are like that, so parking is definitely something to consider, because that might add a lot of time onto your trip, and you might want to prioritize that place early in the day. Okay, so just to sum up all those points, manage your time well, have an itinerary planned, don't waste time sleeping in, enjoy the road trip itself, because that is part of your fun adventure. So don't let that be a waste of time. Enjoy that. Have everything prepped before you go on vacation. Keep it simple. If you want to have spontaneous last minute trips and stuff, have a go bag ready. I love having my go bags ready. Utilize long weekends. See if you can switch your holidays, if you can do floating holidays. Save your PTO days by working holidays. Utilize shift changes if you work a job where you transition shifts all the time. I work in healthcare, so I always have shift changes, and I almost always use them to benefit me somehow. My shift changes are never a downfall. I always benefit from them somehow. So you can figure out what your driving is for you, but like I said, 2 hours for me is a nice day trip. 3 to 4 hours is an overnight trip. Anything more than that is going to be a 2-night trip probably. And the last point I have for you is, if you just still don't feel like anything's going to help you or be possible, maybe you need to think about a career change. I recently changed, not recently, it's over a year ago, but over a year ago I changed jobs, and I travel all the time now. So sometimes if you're just not happy, you might want to think about what you're doing in life, and if there's any way you could change that and do something different. Changing it isn't going to magically make you happy. You still have to work for happiness internally. But I'm not opposed to career changes, so think about all those points. See if any of them work for you. As somebody who used to never travel and then all of a sudden started traveling, I have used all these points as my way of how I started traveling all the time, because I travel pretty much a lot now. Alright, I hope that helps you. The rest of the month we're gonna hit money. I have a lot of great tips. Like I said, I used to be pretty poor, so I have a lot of great tips on how to overcome financial limitations to be able to travel. And experience. I once had no experience. And I'll tell you some things that helped me along the way to be able to do things and get out there. And the other obstacle is fear. A lot of people are just afraid to travel, especially by themselves. Most of the time I travel by myself. I'm going to tell you how I overcame fear. So leave me some comments, and if you have any more ideas on how to utilize time and overcome that obstacle, definitely leave comments. Let other people know. Let's add to the discussion, and I'll see you next Friday. Peace out. Love you.